think what this diorama needs is a figure. But since just watching me put together a figure from the kit is kind of boring, I figured I'd do something a little bit more interesting. Now with the dramatic cinematics over, let's take a look at this figure. This little guy comes with the kit from Tamiya, and it's really well sculpted. The headset was the only thing I really wanted to adjust since the band itself was a little thick for scale. So I cut that off and recreated it out of a little piece of photo etch I had lying around, and that worked out a lot nicer. There's multiple ways to mount things that you're going to paint. I put the figure itself on cork. You can also put it on a toothpick and stick it into foam. Or if you don't have any of that, you can use some tape and a piece of wood. Stick it to that. Anything that you don't have to hold the actual piece you're painting. Next came what you're all tuning in for, the dry brushing. I got this idea from Don Serratos. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I hope so. But he is a full-time painter for Vallejo. He also has a YouTube channel for figure painting. And his process that I just saw was that you dry brush everything in gray. Lighter and lighter tones, pulling out the highlights, and just like you would dry brush anything but without color, and pull out all the details you can. And it's a really good kind of exercise in finding the highlights on a model. And this part went fine. But the problem was when it came to glazing. So his process was to glaze over all the areas that you dry brush with the color that you want. And that is great, and it does work, but I ran into some issues with the color. So this is when disaster struck. The blue. I wanted to paint his uniform blue. Not this blue. I wanted it to be slightly blue. This uniform is supposed to be like a light gray, but I didn't want light gray on a light gray tank. So I took a little bit of artistic license and I wanted it to be slightly blue so it would have nice contrast. So that is fine with the highlights, but the color was just completely wrong. So I decided to take a break and paint his face and skin and see if that made me feel better. Don't worry, we'll go back and fix the uniform. I just needed a break. This you can see the highlighting and dry brushing underneath really did work. So these are just really light, thinned out paints or glazes, and pull out where the dark areas were and pull out where the highlighted areas were. But I only had to use a couple different shades of paint because I had that base coat underneath. And then I could just do a little bit of blue for his beard, a little bit of red on the cheeks and lips, and then finish up his hair. So I basically had to go back over all the uniform and just kind of paint it the traditional way I know how. And that is taking the darker colors and painting all the shadows, and then progressively using lighter and lighter shades of that in kind of a wet blending technique to pull out all the detail. And I'm happy with it. I just did a ton of extra work that I probably didn't need to do. But like I said, it was a good kind of lesson in painting highlights, and any practice is good practice. So, it is what it is. Here I'm just pulling out all those highlights again with a very light blue. And don't worry, I have plenty of other builds lined up with plenty more figures, and I'm going to get this technique down pat and show it to you. So I wanted to give them a little bit more detail. I use this string that's typically used for ship rigging. It's a little elastic, and it makes it so much easier to use. For this, I want it to be a little thicker. I just used some string, and those were the wires that connect the headset. I always like doing this. It kind of, I don't know, it makes it feel a lot more realistic, even if it's a little bit more work. You can see the fit on this figure to the tank is amazing. Really, really happy with how that came out. So here's what I should have done, or this is how the process is supposed to go. I used a glazing medium, and I thinned down the paints with that, and I just go over everything that I dry brushed, and that is how it's supposed to work. You can see through the transparent paint the dry brushing underneath. It's not perfect, but I think I'm on the right track. Then I just wanted to give the fuel can a little bit more detail, giving it some fuel spills, and then place everything on the base. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you've come this far, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And that's it for this diorama. I think that's the last time we're going to see it. Mission accomplished. Thanks for watching.